Good evening. Town of Sheldon Selectboard Water Commissioner regular meeting Tuesday, May 27th at 7:30 p.m. On tonight's agenda for new business, Sheriff Griswold is here to discuss the policing contract, Planning Commission and Development Review Board appointments, Local Emergency Management Plan annual approval, Highway Department report, 2025 paving, Town Administrator's report, to sign and approve May 12th meeting minutes, warrants 2522, payroll, and 31,693 for accounts payable, excess weight permit, under old business, the hazard mitigation planning, the financing agreement for the 2025 fire truck, the assessor interlocal agreement, tax mapping contract with CAI Technologies, salt shed RFP, and to act upon any other business thought proper when met. Anybody have anything else to add to tonight's agenda?
Executive session at the end.
Okay, we'll add the executive session to the end, and then we will exit for the evening after the executive session after tonight's agenda. All right, so without further ado, let's start off with Sheriff Griswold.
Good evening, thanks for having me. I was approached by Matthew a couple or 3 weeks ago, whatever, about some considerations for a new contract. As of the end of this month, our existing contract expires. If everybody remembers, we did a 6-month contract. A lot of that, I think, was around getting reacquainted. I think that there was some challenges with providing enough coverage, and so maybe there were some feelings that maybe providing services, my organization providing services, wasn't the best fit for Sheldon, but I think that we've more than proved that we're capable of rising to the challenge, and I don't know if we want to go over any of those numbers for everybody's benefit, but particularly in our traffic enforcement area, that's the biggest. Everywhere around the county, the highest volume of interactions that law enforcement have is traffic enforcement, by far. And that would include, all of the self-directed activities that we have, speedings, from that DUIs, from that drugs, from that some other, driving license suspended, some other things that could come out of those as well, in terms of arrests. So the numbers that we represented in the last month, we're always kind of a month behind in the reporting, but in the last month, just to give everybody kind of an understanding, we did 40 motor vehicle stops, working only 33 in 0.75 hours. So that's an incident per hour of 1.3, which far exceeds every other town that we're in. Usually they're about a 0.3. So when we've been up here, we've been almost twice as active. Now there's a lot of factors, and I don't know if we want to waste everybody's time talking about what goes into all that, but it really speaks to the needs that we have, the needs that Sheldon has for dedicated law enforcement, and the way that we've delivered. So I'm hoping that the reason that we're here tonight is that the board and the town feels very good about entering into another agreement with us moving forward. So we're equally happy about that opportunity as well. So Matthew and I talked. The original proposal that I was asked to put together was a 16-hour-a-week contract, and then through some collaboration, it looked like maybe there was some different options that the board would like to consider, with ramping up maybe more hours in the summer when there's more volume, more traffic volume, and then ramping down in the winter months when there's less. So I agree that that's certainly a possibility for us. We would like a 1-year contract. We agreed to the 6-month, but again, as I've stated, we've more than approved our worth here. So that's kind of where we're at. So it's really up to you. I think just going back a little bit, the board also would ask for a breakdown of some of those costs, what went into that. I'm happy to elaborate further if that's necessary, but basically how we did it for your review was to look at the per hour cost, to look at the dispatching costs, and then the other costs, like what it costs for a cruiser and fuel and those kinds of things. And so we broke that down, but I'm happy to speak to any other increases if any of you would like some more information.
Initially, I know when we started the first contract, there was questions because like you said, you're trying to get things kind of rejuvenated or the office back up to par. I don't know if you can say on camera or if that's going to be a concern, but you feel that staffing, can you give a percentage? Like you feel confident in the staffing, like we're good to go?
Staffing is good. But knock on wood, we are living in the era where people don't want to be police officers. I have 0 applicants right now, and that's unheard of. So and I know the other departments in the state of Vermont are experiencing that as well. The numbers are discouragingly low in a scary fashion. So we're doing the best we can, but right now we've got a pretty good core of folks. We did lose a pretty seasoned member of our organization to a non-law enforcement job, which again is consistent with the trend that we're seeing in Vermont, but we were able to pick up another one. So it was a swap out, so we didn't go negative at least, so we're feeling pretty good about that. But it's just the nature of our business. As I've spoken many times before, 10 years ago we were turning people away left, right, and center. Now we can't find anybody that wants to do this job. It's unfortunate, but that's the world that we're in. But so far so good. We're feeling very good. Every contract that we do is, we always have these targets. We cannot guarantee those services, but as demonstrated over the last 6 months at least, and with other towns, if you look at them, we haven't missed a beat yet. So I'm feeling very good about our ability to meet the needs of Sheldon and the other towns that we have going forward.
Can't recall how much we budgeted. I guess my question would be, if the need was there on a weekend basis, if we were to reach out and say, hey, we have X amount of dollars available for overtime on a 4th of July weekend, or the beginning of school when people need to get back into that mode of slowing down for buses and drop-offs. Is that something that we can just on a as needed basis reach out to you and just
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we could agree to at least a core of 8 hours a week, anything above that is great. And the reason for that is we have to be able to create an organization that is sustainable. I don't want to have folks, and I've lived in the contract world, I've talked about this before, where it's very tumultuous. People don't want to be approaching, the end of June and thinking, are we going to have contracts? Do we have to downsize? What does that mean for folks? Are we going to move from patrol into other areas of the business that might not be palatable? So that at least helps me sustain a decent amount of work combined with some others to create a 40-hour-a-week cycle for one of our full-timers, so a full-time equivalency. Anything above that, we're happy to accommodate and flow with whatever the needs that you have are and meet those needs.
I think we budgeted $60,000 for policing for this for 2025, and I tried to break it down by half year there in those numbers that I ran. I just shared with them the same numbers I shared with you, John, about if it was 6 months at 8 and 6 months at 16, or if it was maybe 7 months at 16 and 5 months at 8. Just different, which just affects the budget differently. The way it is. I forgot to look there. Jane did provide us with a budget status report, so that'll show you how much we spent on policing so far this year. But I think any of those options, we have more than enough money in the budget left for the rest of this year. And then obviously into the last 6 months of the contract will be on next year's budget.
So the only other 2 questions that come to mind for me are, we had the instance, with your predecessor, where we thought we were in a contract, there were some staffing issues. We had the instance up on Crow Hill where we're telling people we have a contract with the Sheriff's Department, reach out to them, not knowing that it wasn't being, fulfilled at the time to the level that we thought it was. After hours, or if it's a time when you're not in town, we're directing people to call VSP.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. But again, it's, let's be reasonable about it. You know what I mean? If they're just simple things for us to follow up with, that's no problem. We do that in other towns. If there's a VIN verification, or if there's a minor neighborhood dispute, and that can wait until we're back in town, I have no problem with that. It's only a concern if there's something big.
Right.
If it's something that comes in and now we're spending a lot of time that we're not able to bill for, we can handle some of that. I've got administrative people in the office that can answer questions, and I still want to make sure that my office is open and accessible. I think that's a real big benefit to everybody, but we just need to be reasonable about it. So
okay. And then the other question I had for you is, we're one of the towns that has 4-wheelers are allowed on town roads, and I don't know if you've received reports of anything. I assume with the weather getting nicer, maybe you do. What does your department how are you handling the four-wheeler concerns in terms of,
Yeah.
do you guys have a patrol for that, or
Yeah,
just
that's
a
a great
policy
topic.
so that people know?
Yeah, that's a great topic. So Highgate has just embarked on opening up roads for ATV use as well. Richford has had it and other towns have had it as well. So we take kind of a two-pronged approach with that. First off is education. And we realize that it's a couple of bad apples that really spoil it for everybody else. The majority of people actually do operate in a safe manner. And we saw this in Richford a lot. We got a lot of complaints about folks, but when we went up there, we saw maybe 1 out of the 15 that were reported. And they're not egregious, what we've seen. Yes, you always do, but like with motorcycles, right? You have the majority of people that operate motorcycles safely, you have a couple that drive recklessly, and then paint this bad image of what motorcycle operation looks like. So in terms of Sheldon, we haven't had many, there's always a few, but haven't had many incidents so far. With the warmer weather, yes, more ATVs will be out, but we'll concentrate on that, and this is something where, we'll like I said, the two-prong is that we'll try with education. We'll start there. We don't want to be adversaries with ATV riders. We don't want to get into pursuits. We don't want to get into taunting. We don't want to get into some of the other adversarial type relationships with ATV riders. We want them to be safe. We want them to be educated, and we want them to follow the law. Now, if that doesn't work, then we can be punitive. And there's lots of things that we can do to do that, up to including seizing and impounding vehicles. So we'll do that if that's necessary. We don't want to get there, but we will if we have to, right? I mean, we have to ensure that if folks are going to be operating, that they're following the laws and doing that. I'm a big fan of, if it's not an egregious violation, a warning is usually a pretty good reminder that folks need to follow the laws and that we're out and about and checking these things. If they're repetitive, and we all know that there's a handful of folks, it's the same folks. And I've encouraged my folks to go out and do the knock and talks. It's Timmy Smithers' kid. Well, we'll go have a conversation. If that's not something that you're not comfortable with, we'll go do that. And at least put them on notice. And so we'll be very mindful of where those bad apples are, and we'll do our best to make sure that they're gonna follow the laws.
Okay.
I don't think I have any questions for you, Marie?
No, I think we covered being able to adjust things for winter versus summer, and schools. I think that's a good holidays. Those are good times to be able to increase if needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys want to discuss those. Those were we just kind of threw out some ideas in terms of 6 month split of 5 months of 8, or a 7 and 5 month split, or I don't know if you guys have a preference with any of those schedules. Those are just the ones that
I mean, I don't know.
most to me.
I guess my question is the 2-week block shift in April. Is that just? Is there a reason for that period of time? Or is it just arbitrary?
I was just going by beginning of the calendar month or middle of the month, just to see if maybe you wanted some more coverage into November.
No, I think.
Or if you wanted more in that I tried to, because the sheriff bills monthly, but the services are provided on a weekly basis, so I tried to have it be ends of weeks so that
There's a little and how I look at it too is if there's 4 days are in July, and then the next 3 days, then I consider that a July week. But if it's the 4 or more, that's where it kind of falls in terms of breaking this out.
Right.
But at the end of the year, it's all the same, right? I mean, it's the same amount of weeks.
Right. It was just, I guess the other reason is just whether if you wanted more coverage, because of the way, because the sheriff's on a fiscal year calendar, we're on an annual year calendar, how those hours are split up has effects on how much we spent this year versus how much we spend next year on it. But that's the only reason why I kind of threw that in there. But
I mean, I haven't heard any concerns with the coverage. I don't know if anybody else has. I know that I've noticed a presence in town, so we definitely appreciate that. I don't know if today there was, something special with Governor Highway, but there was, I can tell you, getting off the interstate from there through Enosburg, there was 2 deputies and St. Albans and so on and everybody else. So there's definitely police presence on 105 right now, and here in the creek. I passed them in the creek too.
They were here tonight, they're
Yeah.
trying to book by the blue shark.
Yeah, they were by Spalding's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's afternoon there by Spalding, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you don't need us to take a vote on this right now.
No, not necessarily, I just didn't know if,
And of course, these numbers are work for you in terms of like
They
a
do,
set,
yeah.
like a seasonal.
And I agree, I think, the breakdown is consistent with what we see for volumes, April is, for me, option A looks like a really reasonable option in terms of how you're breaking up the concentration of hours over the year. May is when things start to pick up, and they do last until the end of October. I mean, that's consistent. What we've seen. Franklin, as an example, we'll just do summer hours in Franklin.
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily need, any kind of dedicated services during the winter months, but summertime it's obviously busy. So that to me looks like the best option. But again, if we have that minimum in, and we can always customize it. If you're finding that there's more of a need and maybe there's a little surplus and we want to concentrate on some areas, we're certainly capable of doing that, with a week's notice, The other thing that I want to put out there too is and we're still kind of working on ways to do this better, but to really encourage citizen participation with some issues. I'll give you a good example. Right over here at the Four Corners, we have an individual that was very concerned with some speeding and some people running stop signs and whatever. And they said, hey, it's usually between 7 and 8. We change our schedule. If we get some good feedback as to where we can concentrate, these areas better than we do. You see, there's more of you to have eyes and ears into what's out there. So those kinds of things we're happy to customize as well. And my team is usually very, very flexible. And so within a week's notice, maybe even less, we can customize how we apply those hours and to address these issues, right? And we also too don't want to get into the, hey, it's 8 a.m., they're going to be out there, and then,
Right.
But we had great success with that. There was a problematic person, and the very next shift, we found that individual and took his vehicle and all that good stuff, so.
and I want to say that John's been very communicative about when the hours are going to be for each week. He lets me know, if they're going to cover it and which days there'll be coverage, and if there's a change, he lets me know when that happens too. And I think the vast majority of the weeks this year, we've been able to split the shifts into over 2 days, which I think definitely helps. I appreciate you guys doing that, and it's been, from my end, it's been really, really positive. Just having constant communication about things.
Yeah, I don't have any other questions. I assume we take a vote on this a little bit later.
Yeah, I think so.
But thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
My
the
pleasure.
information.
Thank you.
Nancy?
I'm here for the planning board and the DRB board. We have a community member, which actually is my son, Jeremy West. He would like to join both boards. So I'm here to get the selectmen's approval to have him join both boards. We're down members on both boards.
Thanks.
Right.
Thank you, John.
How many members do you currently have?
We only have 4 on the planning, and right now I think we're going down to 4 to the DRB board because one member hasn't showed. We don't know if he's coming. We tried to reach out to him and he's not returning calls.
Oh,
So we're down members. And we're supposed to have alternatives. We don't even have any of those. We have no subs. So he wants to be on both boards and we need him. And that's why I'm here.
Is that a normal nomination process?
Pardon?
Is it normally a member nominates, or is this? I'm not familiar with the terms.
Normally I come to you guys.
With the,
If there's a
okay.
new member, I come to the select board and I tell you, and you say, okay, Nancy, and then I get him his information, his books, and
Yeah,
He jumps on board.
typically this is something that comes up we dealt with it in March, or
Right.
the organizational meeting, we dealt with most of this, but we didn't have any new, we
Yeah.
updated everybody, but we didn't have
I
any
don't
new
know, we didn't have
people.
enough members.
Yeah,
We updated what we had.
right,
Yes.
exactly.
So,
yeah.
and now we have a new member who wants to do both boards, so.
Where does Jeremy live now?
He lives on Rice Hill,
Okay.
in Sheldon.
I guess technically speaking, you don't have to be a resident of Sheldon to be on the planning board. I'm not sure, I can't remember but almost always we've always had people who live in town on these boards, but I think as a matter of like law, it doesn't have to necessarily.
And it's a good thing too, because he's young, to get young blood in here, because we all know how hard it is to fill some of these positions. You know, through the town, nobody's really interested in it, and he has shown the interest in it. Matter of fact, I let him look through my books at the house, and he's like, hell yeah, I'll do it. So,
Is there any conflict of interest?
no. I had Danielle check for me. There is no conflict of interest, as Matt is Greg's son. There's no conflict of interest with me. I'm just on the board. And I am the chair of the planning board, but there still is no conflict of interest. I had Danielle check that for me before we came here.
Mm-hmm.
So your planning commission has 7 seats on it, and there can be up to 3 alternates.
We're down.
We have 3 vacant seats on that board right now.
Okay.
I think the DRB actually has 9 seats on it, so.
Yeah, the
we'll see
DRB
even
is
more on
down,
that one,
yeah.
so, yeah.
They're both down.
Yeah.
So if we can get some young blood in there that's interested, I say let's go for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we need somebody to carry it on when the rest of us are giving it up.
I mean, I don't see an issue, or I haven't heard an issue that'd be a problem, so.
Yeah,
No,
I think that's
I
a
checked
good thing.
before to make sure it was all okay with everything.
Do you know how long a commitment he wants to make to it, or?
He said for as long as he can be on the board, he's on it.
Okay, so I think.
Do they have terms like we do?
Yeah, I mean, typically, the way I think it was originally set up was that you would appoint basically every year you'd be appointing 2 or 3 members to a 3-year term.
Right.
And we kind of fell out of that a few years ago, and so this year when we re-upped everybody, I think we tried to stagger it, so some people are serving 1 year, some people are serving 2 years, but if he wants to commit to a 3-year term, then I think you should probably do that.
Yeah.
So just to let you know that way you don't have to appoint the whole board, you know.
Right, all at once, because I know we try to stagger it for the library. And,
Yes, exactly, so.
Okay.
But I think, yeah, typically 3 years is the longest that the appointment lasts right now.
I'll make a motion for the appointment.
Yeah, I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Now, do you have any questions about the planning board or anything? We all good?
I think we just asked all the questions right now.
Yeah, I think so. You're running the show, you're doing a great job.
Yeah. So we're still working on our bylaws,
Mhm.
getting them up to par. We are on, section 6 right now. We want to make sure that our 7-year plan and our bylaws and everything come together. We want to make sure that they're all aligned and matched, because with some of the new regulations and rules, especially with like renewable energy, we didn't have it in our book, and now we do. So it's like we're going through and changing things, and we're working with the NRPC, right?
Correct, yes, yeah.
And about housing and about creating more housing and maybe changing some different things. So that's what we're working on right now in the planning board.
Now, would those changes just be something that you would adopt on your own, or they have to go to the town, or they have big changes, little
We'll adopt it
changes?
through them, and then we'll,
Yeah, so-
not to where.
Right, so yeah, when the planning commission will propose the
Right.
revisions to the zoning bylaws, and then the select board will have the
Right.
opportunity to
They do that.
approve it, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and in most of the update, I mean, there's some other things that you're reviewing, they're reviewing it line by line, but most of the updates that need to be made are things that were addressed in the town plan process, so, or were covered by that, bylaw modernization grant that we did.
Yep.
So, creating that separate zoning for Sheldon Springs and the smaller lot sizes.
Just in the
Yeah.
village.
Yeah, those are the things that are being changed.
Okay.
And it's a good way to get some of the members to look at the book and know what we're doing. Especially new ones.
Right.
So,
And I do have a book for him, it's on Danielle's desk.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's just,
Okay.
Good to go.
All right.
yeah, that's it. Thank you guys.
Have a good one.
Yep,
Thank you, Nancy.
you're welcome.
All right. Seth?
Yep. So I came up with 3 quotes for paving for this year. Matt and I, in our travels, we kind of went with some roads in the junction. Pretty much every road except for Severance that we did 3 years ago. Still in good shape. So I'll start with highest lowest here. And don't look at these numbers, or I mean, don't look at the high number because obviously we only have 210,000 to play with. I'm not an estimator, so instead of like lowballing it, we cruise around and it's better off having a little over than we'll subtract whatever we don't need to see fit to make the 210,000. It's always been pretty much right on the money over the last few years. So this starts and it goes there. I highlighted it's basically per ton, whatever we choose to do. I always like to stretch it out, don't want to pay in one place, stretch it out from one end of the town to the other. Excuse me. And so this SDR Ireland company, they're just getting paid in the summer. They're not totally set up yet, and it won't be until the middle of June, they're thinking. But it was an estimator that used to work for Pike, and a few of the employees went to Ireland's. So as far as work goes, I'm pretty sure they're on track and they do a good job. I mean, Ireland's done paving before, but they're advancing. And they moved up to a site in Milton.
The industrial park in Milton? Is that right?
It's off the highway. It's off I-9. You can see them from. It's like an old. It's called the Black Quarry, I believe.
I don't know exactly
It was
how you
individual.
get there. I just know that you can see it sort of from the interstate when you drive by there. But
Okay.
It was an individual that owned it, and he kind of just wanted to retire out of it, so they still had product left, and they turned it into an asphalt from there. Obviously, they're not done yet. But.
in general, I think Whitcomb's and Pike kind of were pretty comparable to last year in terms of for bids. I think a little bit lower in both cases, but and then Ireland being a new kid on the block there. And then the only thing on some of they all have their different ways of estimating how much product they think they're going to use, so the tonnages are not exactly the same, but
Some of those, some of those estimates are from one estimate compared to whereas, I think Daniel Road, there's a big gap.
Like one guy it was raining out, so he didn't get out of the truck. It was Tyler Whitcomb, he was the owner of the company, so we just drove around and I just pointed out here, and he's like, yep. And he was actually the first one to respond.
So, and I forget, in that Pike quote, is that their budget quote number? Or
Pike and Ireland's both said they could probably do a little bit better. This is just a budget quote. It's not an actual.
I think they provide it as a service so that if you wanted to put out a formal request for bids, you could use that as to estimate the tonnages, and then you could. And then when you put it out for formal bid, they give you a hard number, and that's what they did last year. Well, last year we didn't put out a formal bid, but they came back with a second quote after they came out and did the first one, and it was a lower number. So
this is just a quick shot of the salt shed for the concrete from Harrison's. I've spoken with a few more, but I haven't heard back yet, so I'll definitely have something by next meeting. I'm thinking.
Didn't Harrison's have an engineer?
Yeah, and that was just that was a revise from the original 20 by 40 that we were going to build. So I just had them actually widen it out to 20 feet wide, and it was actually like $2,000 more than this time, so it wasn't too bad. And that was back like basically in December, I believe. Yeah.
So when will we actually send out requests, RFP?
So that's what I'm hoping to do soon here. I just wanted to get all the details together and wanted to confer with Mr. Hungerford about what he thought about it. I haven't had a chance to do that yet.
Wasn't there some discussion about, it talks about a slab?
Yeah, so
That's the other
Asphalt?
thing, yeah.
So I had to leave that out if we decide to go with paving, or to add on the 11.5, for an 8-inch slab, which some say yay, I don't, myself.
If you're gonna be taking to me, it seems like if you're taking a bucket into a salt shed,
Yeah.
you're scraping it along the asphalt, I would think that concrete would hold up
You'd think
better
so,
to that.
yeah. I've heard it both ways.
I don't know,
The salt that tends to eat at the concrete after time.
maybe that's,
I was gonna say, what was it, 2 meetings ago, we were talking about that, and someone had mentioned the asphalt.
Yeah.
I guess that's how meeting did, someone mentioned.
Yeah,
the asphalt. Yeah.
Wayne Russell asked about it, town meeting too. Yeah, I don't know if it may be that because asphalt's more forgiving in terms of you can move more. I mean, obviously it's not, and in a salt shed environment, it's not like it's gonna be a lot of sun exposure on it, which is usually the other thing that deteriorates pavement, and I don't know if it's just that salt had more effect on the concrete over time or what it is, but I've heard that, yeah, their salt sheds are built with an asphalt bottom instead of concrete, but.
okay.
Have you talked to any of the surrounding,
So I'm just gonna get into that.
to say what they have? and-
I would like to have a minute and go around and check out different different sheds and see what they actually have and, talk to them about it.
Yeah.
The few that Matt and I
Yeah,
did check
we
out.
went and looked at Bakersfield,
Yeah.
although that was older and just,
Yeah.
that was just a concrete block, building. And I guess it had a concrete foundation.
Yeah.
But it's like 30 years old.
What does Franklin have?
Franklin has concrete.
Of course.
Adam,
Some of it-
Adam the phone over there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeremy's the foreman, but
Adam's the
road commissioner.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure the bigger ones at the state. I haven't stuck my nose in any state sheds yet, but it'd be nice to go check some.
I know that they did one on the islands there not too long ago. But I don't know what kind of bottom they put in that. I have the RFP for that. I didn't think to look at whether they put paper.
Well, the state just did that one in St. Albans, Seth must know, Hungerford?
Yeah.
The one in St. Albans, they must,
Right.
Yeah. You go check that out tomorrow or something and see what it looks like.
So we reach out to them on RFP.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do is, we'll take, the estimates we've been getting and kind of firm up, like, again, now I confirmed with you guys last time that you would like to try to do a separate bid for, a separate project for the concrete versus the superstructure. And then, Greg also asked if we could get some quotes for putting a fence around it also. And it's just a matter of getting if I could use that as an estimate of the amount of material that we're going to use, and I'll send that to Seth and see what he says about the feasibility of that, or he can help us in any way with prepping that. But I think we should be able to get something together before next meeting. I think,
Why did we decide to split the two?
I think the idea was that we'd rather have, if we get a general contractor, then, I'm not sure if, you could get a general contractor, but then they'd be subbing out the concrete work, which I guess could work, but the concrete's probably gonna be most of the cost of it, and I'm thinking that one of these concrete contractors could get that base installed relatively quickly. And then we'd have more options. There's limited number of concrete contractors around, and I think there's presumably more people who could probably put the top of it. So I think that's why we had that discussion. Also, presuming if if worse comes to worse, we could have the guy strap on tool belts and order some rafters, but, you know, probably preferably we'd have a contractor do it. So I think that's why we discussed having it split up. Also because at least the concrete, some of these firms might be able to provide engineering for the concrete in-house. Whereas if we did a general contract, we'd probably have to do that first and then and have it included in the request for general contracts. So,
But we moved the same, it took 3 days to do it, but, it's where we're going at.
yeah.
We put some, drainage in both sides today. There's like 250 feet down the neighboring, property, and where that, wet hole, we had some left over, so like, oh, we'll dig another, we daylated it out from where the old shed was, where that wet hole was, kind of on the side there, and came up to where the sand tile is, and used the rest of it. Okay.
Yeah, we ended up renting an excavator. We just had Hunter run that for a few days to move it over there, which I think was the most cost effective and made the best use of our labor that we have. So.
Okay. How's everything been going?
Good. We got all the cemeteries moved before Memorial Day weekend, and they look good. And we just been mowing lawns, and I've been doing all the grading, and Matt's been chloride and doing all the trimming, mowing. While I'm out there, Hunter's this last week or two, we've been just concentrating on moving this sand. It's about all in a nutshell. I brought my 21 truck down today to get like 2 small decals on it, down on our hill to the international building there, so should be back in a few days, I think.
What did you have done?
It's just 2 small recalls.
Oh, okay.
They called us about it back in the winter.
Yeah.
He said, well,
You
wait till
can't-
spring to do
Yeah,
that.
you can't open the hood until the plow frames are off anyway, so.
And then there's an issue that the Ford truck needs to have addressed too.
Yeah, there's a small recall on that for like a airbag or something, so we need an appointment for that.
I stopped over earlier, saw them out digging, so I pulled in to see how it was going, and brought up the high school student who's interested in some summer work. And I don't want to take anything from Seth's agenda, but he said that with the rotating schedule of summer leave that's planned for people, like there could be adequate work for that high school student to fulfill those hours. We just need to look into if I'm saying something that's not accurate, let me know, Seth. All right. We have to look into how that works with the insurance with the cold haul career.
Right, oh, I see.
We did it before with the previous high school intern.
Yeah,
Just need to know like what they're able to do, not able to do,
yeah, I'll have to ask him about what we did for that.
and then I don't know if we want to schedule him for next meeting to come in and meet. I need to get an idea of what his certifications are and what we can hopefully provide him over the summer. When his start and end date would be and that type of thing.
Okay, I can definitely look at the insurance part.
I'm not sure who the head of the cold haul career is, but I'm sure they would.
Oh, it's probably Nathan. I don't know who does
I don't know if
that
Nate-
process, but.
I don't know if it was Nate and the information or if it was our insurance.
Oh,
Right,
okay. Yeah,
I
okay.
want to talk to both.
Yeah, all right. Well, I can.
I was just trying to figure out. You remember his age?
I think he's 17.
Maybe it could be 16 or 17
Yeah.
because it
I think
was
he has
next
another
year.
of school.
Yeah, it was 2026 that he said graduation, so probably 16 or 17.
Okay.
16.
Yeah.
He has another year of school, so.
Okay. And he's just looking for, I think he's just looking for summer.
Yeah, I think it was
help,
just
that'd be-
summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume it means
Mowing
probably.
lawns, flagging, stuff like that would be good if we get him for a course, that'd be good. Well, that is another, sorry, just to bring up, because Seth and I were talking about, so the Solch, they didn't the shoulders on Pleasant Street, except for in front of Sedbury's there, because Sally asked us not to do that until after the service for Albert. But the other project we had talked about was that bank at the top of Bridge Street, trying to cut that next to the church property, trying to cut that bank down a little bit. But Seth wanted to do that, but with the paving going on 105, we had quite an increase in traffic going through there, and so we were trying to talk about whether that's a really good idea to do or how we would do it. You know, the only way I could see we could do it is we could set up, because we only have 3 guys on the crew, you'd need flaggers and
It's kind of a back corner, you know?
Yeah, it's a bad spot. We
the
don't have
only way
any,
I could think you could do it would be if you had if you set up a detour, you close that short section
Yeah.
of Pleasant Street and you set up a
Send them around by the
detour.
shop.
But that would be, that,
Your
but that
Church
doesn't
Street,
cover
but
it
that-
all either. Yeah.
I was
That's
thinking
a-
about the 105 and now they're going all the way over. That's gonna be a lot of traffic out there, but if that works.
So,
Well, the paving should,
yeah, when is the paving supposed to be done? Or
I don't think it's gonna be much longer. wouldn't
I think they're supposed to get started on
They're still
it soon.
pulling
And
up.
then,
Yeah, they're
the
Yeah.
problem is, I
This-
don't
the end of
know,
this week, they said they were gonna start.
yeah. I don't know how long it's gonna take them to roll all the way to Enosburg, but yeah.
Well, I mean, they only do
Yeah.
like one coat right now and they come back later in the summer, right?
I think that's what their plan is,
Yeah.
yeah. But the way the weather's been, it's kind of been held up, so.
Yeah, it's been lengthened.
I think the state doesn't let those guys even do the milling if it's raining out. So they've had a few rain days. Speaking of that, I was kind of hoping they'd come up on the aprons of our roads a little bit farther, because you can obviously see where they didn't quite make it to the line from, you know, previous years with
Yeah,
the changes. I spoke with the foreman on the milling crew, and he said this year it's like they call it an F pave, where they didn't get the funds they wanted to do it, so it's kind of on a little bit of on the cheaper side per se, and so they're not doing the whole kit and caboodle. They ground off an inch and a half, and they're putting back on an inch and a half, and they're only doing like 20 feet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I noticed it on Main Street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Main Street and Port Farm School, and by the Mill Street, they didn't quite make it to the stop sign there either. That's why I was kind of hoping to pave the roads in the junction this year to match up with the state's new pavement, you know what I mean? But it looks like they're going to do the majority of it. It's better than us going to the edge of 105. But they just weren't quite where the old marks were.
Probably end up with, you know, an extra 200 feet of pavement to do or something like that, or something like that.
If to refresh my memory, where did we leave off Mill Street project?
The sewer
Yeah.
project, it's still, the last I heard from them, they were finalizing the redesign for it.
Okay.
And so I should be hearing about that very soon. We should be trying to go out for bid here like this month, here, or in the next month. But it's taking longer than I thought it was gonna take to get them to do that, so. But anyway, they came last month to do some remeasurements in some places to true it up, and I thought I would receive something by now, but I haven't, so. But as far as I know, that's the last step, and then I think, unless they have redesigned it a lot, we're probably gonna need to get a permit from the state, because we're gonna move the line more than 6 feet in some areas. Maybe they've addressed that in the redesign, I don't know, yeah, and then it's a question of,
When?
when we can get it done.
Was there an estimate of how long that would take to do?
He
the
had thought that we would be able to get it out for bid around now, and then he was hopeful that we could possibly get a contractor to do it in the fall. He thought that was doable back in January when I talked to him about it, but I've just been waiting for him to finish his work so that we can do the RFP and put it out there. So, and maybe it needs to get kicked to next spring instead of the
Can can you follow up?
Yeah.
See if they get any information sooner rather than
Yeah.
later?
And I have, I'll touch on it in my report, but I have started talking to the mill about that possibly being a thing we have to do, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that project and maintain two-way traffic, or at least one lane open on Mill Street, but it might be a challenge.
To bring something else up,
Yeah.
wasn't there talk of being like widening that road down through there or sidewalks? Or something?
There's a sidewalk project.
We have a.
Is that gonna interfere with that, or?
I think that's like a study right now.
Yeah, I think right now they're just, looking into it.
Yeah, it's just a scoping study now, there's no money to actually build anything, so. But I think that's what, Steve, I know, would say that, if we're gonna do it, might as well try to do both things at once if we can, but if see how much money there is to do that, that's the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
That's still TBD.
Yeah.
I guess just on the study process. Right? How long it takes me to do a sidewalk study, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the idea is to get it done this summer, so we have the contract done. and just
I
waiting
assume
to
that
hear-
part of that study would be to estimate costs on said
Yeah,
project.
it is a feasibility study in the end, so yeah. It's mostly gonna be talking to the state about how to get across their highway, I think, that's gonna be most of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
So Hunter has his water test June 11th.
Nice.
So it's coming right up.
Have you talked to Hubert at all about that?
Hubert's going on vacation. He's heading to Alaska 30th of June. He's being gone throughout July for a few weeks. So
Okay.
so
Hope for the best then.
Oh,
there was a few water shutoffs last week, I think.
yeah.
And there's some paid up, and then there's some residents, or maybe two, that are still shut off.
Do you know where they are?
From time to time, yeah.
Or is that on one section, like they're next to each other type deal, or is this like two separate locations?
Separate.
I think it's separate.
Stations going in.
All right.
There might be a small water leak, I heard, but within next week, I think they're gonna go do the meter reads on the houses, so they can kind of tell, neck it down to actually if it's actually at a residence or if it's just in the pipe itself somewhere. Right now, everything's so waterlogged, it's hard to see if the grass is green or somewhere,
Yeah.
That's the other thing I've been talking with the mill about is finding out. They've used a lot of water this spring, but I think that's gonna level off, but I'm having a conversation with the mill manager about how much we can expect them to be using, because the pump, if it keeps going the way it has been, the pumps are gonna get pretty tired pretty soon.
My understanding is the old well that's behind the fire station there, the
Right.
pumps are the same of what we use now? Or something to that effect?
I don't know about that. That well, it's not totally decommissioned, but the well is not usable, but there is still a reservoir there. So I don't know if the pump.
So, what is the what benefit does that well have to the town?
Good question. I think minimal right now. The only thing there is, the one by the new school has been decommissioned and plugged, but the one up there, I don't think we've gone through that process. But as I said, I think if there's any residual value, there is technically a reservoir underneath that building.
So there's a tank under there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I don't know when's the last time we used that, but I'd have to ask Hubert about what the state of that infrastructure is.
But that's different water supply, right? That's not the current supply feeding there.
Correct. Well, I
So-
guess in theory you could hook the current supply to it and have a second reservoir, but that's not the way we are using it right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is a conversation that we probably should have about, whether we want to have, whether that will should be decommissioned and that building taken down or.
Well, there's a big hole in the
Right,
roof
that's
of
the-
that. That's it.
yeah,
I mean,
that's
we
the
either
other thing.
take care of it or
Yeah.
don't take care of it.
Right,
Yeah, I mean, we've been
Yeah.
mowing it,
Right.
there's
Yeah.
not much there, but,
yeah.
it is kind of falling apart.
Alright. And likewise, there's still a building by the new school, even though the well is decommissioned, but there's a fence and building around it, and whether that should be dealt with differently than it is also.
All right. Do you have anything else for us yet?
No, I'm having another load of chloride delivered tomorrow.
Okay.
Another 5,000 gallons. We've been to like 7,000 gallons. It's roughly 1,000 gallons a mile, depending on the road. Like say Port Farm shaded, and there's not any houses on it. You go along and probably don't use as much as like Duffy Hill, where it's a lot of traffic and a lot of residents. We should be done. There's like 2.5 days of grading left. Not every day is a good day for grading. It's better off if it rains the night before. There's a little bit of moisture. It activates the mag a lot better, and it's easier on a grader because the road's a little softer. But we'll have it done here in the next week or 10 days.
Did you have anybody look at that steering column on that?
I put it off for now. I was like, well, we only have a few days left, and he pretty much has all summer to check it out. And they're going to come up and evaluate the engine oil leak and the steering column.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Have a good one.
All right, I suppose.
Instead of 2 for the signings with.
I guess.
Do we want to take a vote on the sheriff's contract now, or do we want to hold off on that? Because we have time for next, what is today, May 18th?
Today's the 27th, so the contract runs out June 30th, so you could take it up at the next meeting if you want. I can have him, the contract as it's written right now is for 16 hours or 8 hours. He gave us 16 hours, and he said if you want less than that, you just divide it in half, pretty much. But I could have him draw it up for 6 months of each specifically, and then that's if that's what you guys prefer. If you prefer the May to October schedule for additional hours.
I mean, that's what we discussed as a full board previously, and I think we all agreed to that as far as I recall.
Yeah, it was the possibility of can they down the hours during winter time and then ramp them back
Right.
up. So I I would move to have them drop a contract for option A.
Yeah.
I agree.
And
Option A.
then we can vote as a full board next meeting.
Okay, that works.
Okay, I will have that prepared.
All right, we'll do the signing, and I guess I'll read the minutes from May 12th. All right, this is the Select Board Water Commissioner regular meeting minutes from May 12th, 2025. In attendance, Select Board was Maria, Stephen Dodd, Richard Piasny, Greg Stebbins, and Nick Norris. Others was Justin Mason, Matthew Stebbins, Town Administrator, and Jerry Vasey, Northwest Access TV. 7:49, Steve Dodd called the meeting to order and read the agenda. 7:50, Assessor Justin Mason addressed the board regarding bids received for townwide reappraisal and the assessor's interlocal agreement. Several firms were contacted, but only New England Municipal Resource Center, NEMRIC, submitted a bid for townwide reappraisal of all residential and farm properties for $118,800. One of the bid was received from Sansucci Associates for appraisal of utilities only. Justin reported that the NEMRIC bid is comparable to, in his experience, with other towns in the interlocal agreement, all of whom have contracted with NEMRIC for reappraisal. If approved, the reappraisal would be done in 2028 and payments being made to NEMRIC on a prorated basis for 24 months beginning in June of 2028. In response to Steve, Justin confirmed that another firm may need to be hired to appraise commercial properties like the paper mill and hydro plant. Steve asked about the timeline for approving the contract. Matt replied that the state has asked Sheldon to have a plan in place in case the state orders a reappraisal. Justin said it was unlikely that the state would approve reappraisal before 2028. Justin and Matt shared the proceedings of the recent meeting regarding the interlocal agreement for Justin's services as assessor, which is up for renewal July 1st. Changes to the agreement included budgeting for training and computer upgrades and possibly increasing in 8 hours a week in Sheldon due to the upcoming tax mapping update. At 8:16, Greg moved to accept the town-wide reappraisal bid from NEMREC to be completed over 24 months beginning in 2028 in the amount of $118,800. The motion was seconded by Nick and carried with a voice vote. At 8:18, the board took up the 2024 audit letter received from R.H.R. Smith and Company. The board had no issue with the clerk signing the letter to finalize the audit.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You're up there.
8:21, the board took up the bids received for financing 2025 E1 fire truck. The contract amount for the truck was $590,317. Bids were solicited for an 8-year lease term. Bids were received from Municipal Leasing Consultants of Grand Isle, Vermont at 4.69% interest and Tax Exempt Leasing Company of Thompson Station at 5.19% interest. Each firm provided a list of towns in Vermont with current contracts. Matt reported that the truck vendor has worked with both companies, but has more experience with the Tennessee firm. At 8:29 p.m., Greg moved to accept a bid from Municipal Leasing Consultants for an 8-year lease purchase agreement of a 2025 E1 fire truck. The motion was seconded by Rick and carried on a voice vote. At 8:31 p.m., the board took up the proposed policing contract with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office. Currently, the town is contracted for 8 hours of coverage per week through June 30th. Matt asked the sheriff to prepare a 1-year contract for the same coverage and an alternative contract for 16 hours per week. The sheriff will attend the May 27th meeting to discuss the contract. Steve asked if it would be possible to have 8 hours of coverage in the winter months and 16 hours in the summer months. Matt will consult with the sheriff. At 8:35 p.m., the board completed bank paperwork, authorized signing authority for the assistant treasurer which was unfinished from last meeting. At 8:38, Steve read the minutes of the April 28th meeting. The board signed warrants 2516 and 31688, road cut permits for Riley Road and Katie Kane and Cameron Kane on Patel Road, and excess way permits for Henry Excavating and Gaudet's Excavating. At 8:49, Greg moved to approve the minutes as read, seconded by Maria, and the motion carried. At 8:50 p.m., Matt Stebbins gave the town administrator report discussing Green Up Day, Mill Street Sewer Project update, noise complaint on School Street, and unresolved mailbox issue, the rail trail parking in Sheldon Village. Hunter Kerouac passed the sewer license exam and has registered for the water course. New mower has been received. The town received a job application for summer work for the highway department. 9:11 p.m., the board took up the salt shed project. Matt asked the board to confirm details of the proposed specifications, including the dimensions and whether these would be separate contracts for the concrete and the rest for the structure. Greg asked for a quote to build a fence around the garage property. At 9:15 p.m., Steve made a motion to enter executive session to discuss personnel, and seconded by Greg, and the motion carried. At 9:50 p.m., Steve moved the exit executive session and adjourned the meeting, seconded by Maria, and the motion carried. Next meeting is Tuesday, May 27th at 7:30 p.m. at the town offices. I'll take a motion to accept these.
Second that.
Make a motion.
There we go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Town administrator's report.
Okay, so, As I mentioned, I've had some contact with, well, I should say that we received a few complaints in the last couple of weeks regarding the lack of a better term, the offensive smell that's going on in the springs, which I think is due to the Mills treatment plant down there. So I wrote an email to the mill manager asking if there's some way that we can mitigate that. And I haven't talked to him directly, but I got a phone call from him today saying that they're working on it. And so I'll talk with him tomorrow and see what they're planning on doing. I also talked with him. I also wanted to talk to him about water usage because it was more apparent earlier this year when the mill, I think the mill had one of their paper machines was replaced, so they had quite a large workforce down there in April. And it seemed like the water demand was more or less every other day was much higher than usual. So that had an effect on our municipal water reservoir at about a 70,000 gallon capacity, and just about every other day we were going over that usage and mostly having to do with the mill fluctuating and it's used. It's tapered off somewhat, but I just wanted to address with him what's a trend that'll look like going forward, and if there's some things the mill can do to tighten some things up there if they need to, because I think the water system can absorb some shock like that for a little while, but after a while, then we'll have some pumps we'll have to replace because they're working all the time. And I also wanted to discuss with him the sewer project and what that might mean for the mill. So anyway, I sent him an email and gave me a call back today. Unfortunately, I was on the phone, so we've been passing each other in the night here, but we'll follow up with him about that. The other, again, I will follow up on the sewer project as mentioned. Last week, we had a kind of general staff meeting for people in the town clerk's office and the assessor and the zoning administrator, just to discuss general office organization and also some workflow issues that we've had where we've just had some issues where people, for example, mostly Justin brought it to my attention that we would be out looking for, when we were out doing assessments, and we would discover like, oh, there's a house that was issued a permit, but it was like more than a year ago, and they either never completed the permit, or they never, it was never followed up on, kind of, and so it wasn't flagged for him to go out and check and see if that shed or addition got built. And so there was a number of things like that where he had gone through, the paperwork that was on his desk and thought, okay, I've got my itinerary, what I need to go out and inspect, and then I would find other ones that needed to go back and look at. And so he just wanted to have it insured so that every time there is a property transfer, a wastewater permit, state water wastewater permit is registered, or a zoning permit is registered, that the correct people are getting the right copies. And sort of the same, but I turn that into a more general issue because this comes up with other things like the road cut permits, for example. That's quite a complicated thing where the person comes in, they get the road cut permit from the zoning administrator, they go to the town clerk and they pay for it. It goes to the highway foreman for him to approve. Then it comes to my desk and I send it to you for the select board to approve it, and then it goes back to the zoning administrator. So, and there's, for each kind of thing that we do, whether it's a property transfer or a zoning permit or different things that people apply for, there can be many hands on it. And anyway, so we discussed so everybody knows what the whole process is for that document, not just their part of it. And also we talked about ways that we can with the computer system updates that are coming, that are going to be coming later this year, I think we'll have everybody on newer hardware and we'll be able to use more of the Microsoft software we have already to virtually share some of these files, or at least we'll at least have like a spreadsheet that everybody has access to where they can look up, oh, where's that zoning permit at? Oh, it's on Jane's desk waiting for payment, and that's the next step, and then when it's done, it'll come to this person and they'll do something with it. So we sort of just had a general discussion about workflow and just trying to be aware of what everybody else needs in terms of having good information about where things are. And then we, again, discussed sort of future planning. There are those computer upgrades we want to make, but also, once we get the tax mapping RFP done in the next year, I'd really love to see if we can use that database that we build as a basis for keeping track of all these other things, because in that way you could like attach lister cards, zoning permits, property transfer payments to the parcel in this database, so that you can click on my house and see when I bought it, what the PTTR from when I bought it, the subdivision that was done before I bought it, the zoning permit for the shed I put up or something like that. And so it's all like one stop place where we can have all that information. That's sort of the end goal I'd really love to have. It'll take time and effort to get there, but that's sort of what I'd really like to see. And then some towns have those sorts of databases and they actually share them publicly so that you can get the lister cards for Fairfield or Fairfax just by going to their town website and click on the parcel and there's the lister card or the zoning information for whatever. And that's CAI works with Fairfield, for example, and a bunch of other towns. They work with like 80 towns in Vermont and just that. So anyway, it was a good, productive meeting, and we're hoping to have. I think our plan is to have a quarterly meeting where, and hopefully it'll rotate around a little bit. We might have a meeting at the garage, for example, or at one of the parks or something like that, so that we're probably won't be at the sewer plant, but maybe we tour the facilities at the water plant or the sewer plant just so everybody gets an idea of what everybody else does for the town. But that's sort of our goal, is to have more of those meetings where we talk a little bit about inside baseball business, and then we go do something, have some food, and kind of learn about what we do. Working on getting, again, been having dialogue with the sheriff about that contract. Continue to have, try to get the other contracts that we need ready for approval in the next month. So the interlocal agreement, I'll just touch on that because it's a very brief thing. I'd just like you guys to confirm that Sheldon would like to move to having, as we discussed last meeting, right now we have Justin for 6 hours a week. The plan would be to have him stay at 6 hours for the rest of this year, and then in January move to 8 hours of work in Sheldon. And part of that is to help accommodate the tax mapping update that's going to happen. And so just if we can confirm that, they can put it into the contract. And I have that spreadsheet right there that has some of the relevant information and for dollars and cents.
We didn't vote on that 2 meetings ago?
I don't think we voted on it. We discussed it.
We discussed it, I think that's what we agreed to.
Yeah, and we didn't agree in principle. I just want to confirm that, so that. And the other thing is I didn't have numbers to show you for what that means. So that's, I believe, that contract is average for 7 hours of Sheldon contract of coverage for the whole year. So it's effectively the same amount. And I'm working on getting the other contract we'll have is the zoning administrator contract, which, as I mentioned, will go up a bit. So I'll have that for your next meeting as well.
So should we,
Yeah.
if we were to agree in principle, do you just want to have the contract ready that we sign when we take the formal vote on it, or do you want, otherwise we're gonna carry it to the next meeting, aren't we?
Yeah, so,
We're voting on it
yeah.
now, we just have to sign a contract and the full board.
Right, that's right, yeah, right. So I just want to confirm that we want to talk about 8 hours in January.
Yeah,
And
that's
that'll
what
be,
we-
that'll be in the agreement, because the problem is you have to write the same agreement for all 5 towns to sign on to. So
Right.
that's the,
Right.
I just didn't want to be in a situation where we change our mind and everybody else has signed the contract and then we have to
Right.
get them to go back and do it. So, okay. Sorry, I was talking about that. I was going to pivot to another thing that I've forgotten now.
Any grants?
Yes. So, yes, so the scoping, the bicycle pedestrian grant is going to the scoping, we have a contractor for that, so I'm waiting to hear from NRPC about our first meeting with them, with the contractor to go forward with that, so I assume that'll happen in the next month. So we also have a grant for a local hazard mitigation plan that we got, and unfortunately that's sort of been on the back burner for the last year, but we're trying to reactivate that. And so, Rick, I believe that would involve you and Gregory. We had established a sort of committee for that. Kim was on that committee when we created it. She's not the town clerk anymore, so, but I think at least if we have yourself and Gregory and myself, and I have reached out to Jane to see if she might be involved in that. So essentially, we just need to have a meeting time where we can all get together for a couple hours to go over the contours of the plan with Stephanie Magnet, who's the consultant on that, and then based on that, there may be some subsequent meetings, but they'd be smaller, it would be shorter, and then there's going to be a public outreach survey that people can contribute to. It's basically about identifying hazards that could happen, whether it's floods, ice storms, other natural phenomena, or other things that can happen that where we would activate the emergency management system. So anyway, there are Stephanie asked people to indicate when they might be available to meet in the next couple of weeks. So I'll probably, if I could ask you, Rick, and Greg to fill that out, we can try to find a time. And then I don't know if anybody else would like to be involved in that. As I said, we set up the committee for this last year, but then we kind of was on the back burner for most of last year. So that's another grant that will be moving forward with this year. Other grants that we have, I need to touch base with Kyle Grenier at NRPC about. One is we have a Better Back Roads grant, just Better Roads grant now, and that is to do. Basically have to go out and do studies to create an inventory of all of our town highways and so the Agency of Natural Resources issues a permit to towns for all of their roads for the stormwater that is generated on those roads. And as part of that, they have this database where they have mapped out all of these individual road segments and tried to identify which ones are going to have erosion problems and what treatment should be done for those erosion problems. So if you're on a slope of this sort, then you should have a grass line ditch, or you should have a stone line ditch, or there should be a culvert here. And so the inventory that needs to be done is going out and finding all those segments and establishing, yes, this segment has the correct solution for the stormwater, or no, it doesn't, this is what needs to be improved, or it sort of meets it, it needs a little bit of work here. And so we've done a fair amount of updating those in the last few years. The road crews put a lot of culverts in and a lot of different roads. I'm not sure how well the database has been maintained, so doing that inventory will kind of do a gigantic upgrade of that database. So that's one grant we have to do, and the state has requires towns to update that by 2027, so we should be in good shape to do that and meet that standard. We also have a grants and aid grant, which is a grant program that uses those inventories to then identify areas to go out and either put a culvert in or do a ditch or something like that. So both of those, I'm going to work with NRPC to assist us with planning, assist us with doing the inventory, and then assist us with doing the what's called what the scoping study ends up being for the. So basically, go out and identify the roads we want to work on, the segments we want to improve with our grants and aid money, and identify like, okay, we're going to improve this segment, we're going to put stone line ditch here. And we're going to improve this segment, we're going to put grass line ditch. In this segment, we're going to put a new culvert. And then, so basically you do that survey, and then you go out and do the work, and you report what you did to improve it, and then you get the money. So, so I'm hoping to hear back from, I just talked to Kyle last week about a different matter, but I'm hoping to hear back from him on when we can start working on these inventories and doing that scoping study for this year's. So this year's grants and aid, we have to spend that money by the end of September to do that. And then I also have signed a letter of intent to participate in next year's grants and aid, which there will be a grant agreement generated for you guys to review and approve in the next month. But that'll be for next year's program. So, and just to let you know, the inventory Better Roads grant, that's a small one, that's $5,000 or $6,000. The grants and aid is more like $18,000 with a 20% match for the town. So I think it's $15,000 in grant money in the town. Adds another 3 or 4 to that. So those are the grants we're working on right now. So in theory, the scoping grant for the bicycles, again, I think that'll basically get completed this calendar year. Same thing with the local hazard mitigation plan that will be done by this fall. So it's got a pretty accelerated timeline for that. The Better Roads inventory, I think we have until December to do that, and then the grants and aid has to be completed by September, so end of September. So those are the grant programs we're currently working on. Tomorrow, Justin will be here. He should be fine. He should be lodging the grant list tomorrow, so that'll start the process for grievances to begin. So he'll lodge the grant list. He'll send letters out to everybody who's had their value, their property changed. They'll have an opportunity to grieve that. People do grieve it, we'll have a hearing, so usually I attend that with him. And then he'll make a decision on their grievance. In theory, they could appeal that to the Board of Civil Authority, and in theory, once the board decides, I think technically they can appeal that to state court. I don't think that'll, anyway. So we have to wait for that whole process to go over between the months of June and July, and then in the middle of July the grant list should be finished, so that in end of July, early August, the select board can set the tax rate, because the grant list will be finished at that time. And I was just talking with Jane today. She thinks that there may be a tax sale action taken by the town sometime this year, but just let me know that there may be the state has changed the process for that a bit, so that may take a while for that to play out also. Well, I had some other thought earlier, but I'm not remembering it, so unless you have any questions.
Any update on the truck leasing?
Oh, yes, the fire. So, I have sent all the paperwork in to them for a lease, and they need to do a credit check
Mhm.
on that. I supplied them with the initial quote that we got from the vendor, and I didn't hear anything about that. And then earlier today, they said, "Oh, we need the quote that we got was the original 585 number." And then they tacked on a little bit more cost at the very end. So I sent them the email that I received that explained that increase. And then I reached out to the owner of the services to send me an updated quote also. So I had thought that I would have something for you guys to look at tonight on that, but that hasn't happened yet. They did send me an invoice. This is not anything that need to. This will be something you need to pay when the deal is done, but this is basically how they get paid for doing this besides their financing, but there's a commitment fee and an escrow fee. I think we won't have escrow involved in this because it's going to be a pretty fast transaction. Right now, the timeline, the quote that they gave us was for 30 days, which would run out June 5th. So the timeline on this is it's getting done by June 5th. So that's when we'll be able to buy the truck at least by June 5th right now. So I just thought we'd get it done a little sooner than that. So we've been in contact with them pretty much every day except for yesterday. And from all indications, as soon as they get that, we just have to process that credit check and then we should be able to move forward with the rest of this. So if you guys want to check that out, that's fine. So that's the...
Okay. This, do we need to sign this contract now, or CAI?
Yes, they would. So they supplied that to me the day after your last meeting. So that's my fault. So you approved you approved the bid from them, and that is just a contract standardizing that is just ratifying the bid that you've already approved.
Do we need all our signatures on here?
Typically, the board has wanted to. I mean, I don't know if I'm authorized to sign that or not. So I thought I would bring it to you here at this meeting to have you guys sign it. And I guess I can ask Greg and sign it as well. But again, it's just formalizing something that's already been decided by the board in a motion in an open meeting. So yeah, and that again, I had Franco Rossi, the head of that company, came and visited me last week as well. And so I said, well, as soon as we get this, the board signs off on this, he and I will talk about the next steps. So I just need to get the tax maps that we had done in 2016. I'm going to get the raw data from that and have it sent to them. That's probably going to take the most time, is getting it converted to the software. And then the good news is that Justin's already interfaced with this company and all the other 4 towns that he works with. So he'll be consulting with Justin to get the grand list information updated, and it should be, I think the data conversion is going to take the longest time. And then, so the way we have structured it is that they'll do everything up to this year, up to 2025 this year, and we'll pay for that, and then next year they'll update it again for next year, and we'll pay the rest of the money, but it's split equally between the 2 years, the amount. So.
Okay. Excess weight permit? Is there something here to be signed?
Well, we did, although Nick pointed out that I had not noticed this. So these excess weight permits are issued annual permits, and they always expire in March, which is why we get 1 million of them in March. But as Nick noted, the certificate of insurance that was supplied with this permit only runs through October. So Nick was suggesting maybe I should get in touch with them and see if they can update their insurance for the whole thing, and then we'll just hold on to it until they do that.
To extend it to the end of the year?
Yeah, till March of next year.
Till March, okay.
Yeah, because the current insurance, it goes from October of last year to October of this year. So So I can reach out to them and make sure that
Okay.
that's right, and either have you sign off at the next board or board meeting. So okay, and there was only one permit here. It's a single vehicle permit.
Okay. Anything else?
Do we need to sign anything for the Girl Scout library thing?
Yes. So I forgot to bring that up at the beginning of the meeting. The Girl Scouts would
Yeah, I
like
forgot
to
that.
install a little library installation in Gristmill Park, right below where the rocks are in front of the property. So between the big boulders and the basketball court. And so that being town property, they need the permission of the town to install it there, but it's not. They've been careful to not put it in the state's right of way on the rail trail, so
Yeah.
we don't need to get a state permit to do that. I guess it would be in order to have a motion to approve that site, the siting of that project. I don't think it doesn't require a zoning permit or anything like that, but.
So, what kind of a structure, or like a little temporary thing or something?
Yeah, it's like a little wooden box that has little doors on it to be able to put, books into, and people can hopefully off the rail trail, or if they're going to the park, be able to put in and take out books.
It's about like the
It's
size
already-
of the two medicine cabinets put together, and
So
it's
it's like one of those take a book, leave a book?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, and it's already built, and then we have people who can be able to install it with approval, of course.
What do we have to do for the book return going through that? The mobile book return.
Yeah, I can't remember if we took a formal motion on that, or if we
I don't know if we had
just didn't object to them putting it there, but we did the same sort of thing where they asked if.
Yeah. No, I just didn't know procedurally if we had, because I don't know if there was an existing slab, or you put a little slab
No, we
there.
did put a little, we had the town guys.
Yeah.
And you're just looking, this would just be a pole that you're just, right, it's like almost like a
Yeah.
little birdhouse type.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's got the pole to go with it.
Yeah, it's just on a post.
yeah, on a
post.
Yeah, right. So there's no footer or anything needed for it, it's just,
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It might maybe need
and I ran it by Danielle, but she said that.
concrete at the
a
bottom.
zoning
I'm not
permit-
positive on
I
that.
don't think so.
I don't think so.
She said a zoning permit wouldn't be needed for it, but,
Gotcha.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve it.
You have a second on that?
Great.
All right. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed?
So we were looking at the local emergency plan.
Oh, sorry, that's right. Yeah, I have that right here. So I couldn't find a copy of last year's local emergency plan. This is mostly, we just need to update contact information for the emergency management director, and then we need 2 other points of contact, and the regional emergency services people. I assume that, Rick, you are the regional emergency service person, and I think you're also the
Maybe.
emergency management director.
Yeah, you got time now,
Yeah,
you're retired.
right. So unfortunately, it needs to be filled out, and I couldn't find last year's form to
You need
fill
2
the
other
names
people,
in.
you said?
But yeah, so we basically just need some backup contacts. I don't know if we want to put other members of the select board. I think Kim may have been on it last year as the town clerk. But unfortunately, this needs to be updated by, the backside doesn't need, that's kind of a checklist for doing it, but, so there is I think all we have to do is approve an annual readoption. We don't have to go through the formal process of rewriting the whole thing. I think it's just adopting the contact information is all that's required.
Last year, did you have a backup at the fire department with Dave?
I have a copy of this, I'll have to look at home, for
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then obviously I think it makes sense, not to keep lumping things on his plate, but it kind of makes sense for the town administrator to be a PO.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, if we had Kim, should we have Jane as well? I'm willing to be on there, not that I would be much help, but
I don't know, look at last year's, I don't know if you were the primary and if, was it Dave was the secondary?
I'm not sure. I want to say Greg was in here somewhere, but I'm not
Is this
exactly.
when Greg had the tertiary means of communication if things broke down, where he was
Something like that.
riding horseback somewhere to deliver messages?
Yeah, get a messenger pigeon.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I'm sorry I didn't get that together. I thought, I got an email about it, and I thought, I'll print that off, because I thought it was just gonna have the information from last year on it for reapproval,
Right.
and unfortunately it doesn't, so, because when I got this form last year, I got it from Kim, and it had everything in it already.
Right.
So, I'm sorry that I didn't realize that I needed to fill that out, I don't know if we wanna, anyway, unfortunately, it needs to be adopted by June 1st, so, I'm sure we could get away with kicking it till next month, but technically it's supposed to be done by June 1st. So, we can,
Well, it'll be you and Matt at the very least, and
Mhm.
if Maria wants to be the horseback rider, should it come to that,
Yeah.
then this year's Greg.
Yeah, no, it's the ICS, the NIMS. I think I'm probably the only one has that certification for that piece. Anyway, I mean, I could sign and fill my name out on that piece.
yeah.
And
Which
then
name is this?
It's,
ICS 100 Incident Command System.
Yeah, that one doesn't auto renew, does it?
No.
You've done it once, you're not good for.
No,
Then yeah, it's you.
no. Anyway.
so I'll put, I'm gonna put today's date as our local, our adoption date, 5/7/25. I don't know when our NIMS adoption date is.
I'll have to look at the
Yeah. So, Rick, again, I assume you're the emergency management director here, so I'm gonna put you under that.
Second that.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the other thing is that we can fill this out, and if we find we made an egregious error, we can fix it next
Yep.
month and do it. So I can put in your phone number here and your email later. Point of contact 2 name, I'll put my own name here. And then, point of contact 3, do we wanna put Jane there, or do we wanna put, someone else?
I think the concept, a lot of this, obviously, for emergency management is that you have the payroll people, if you will, or
Right,
the
yeah.
finance side of the house.
Right, yeah,
You have the emergency side of the house, and then you have the administration, everything else in between.
yeah, okay. So I'll put Jane as the third person, makes sense?
I would say
Yeah,
so.
that makes
Okay.
sense.
All right, I will fix the contact information later. And then we have a regional emergency management committee, I believe, and I don't know if you serve on that, Rick, or not. I assume.
If it is, it's through NRPC.
Right, yeah, so, I don't know if we've appointed people to that or not. I guess I'll check with NRPC to see who our appointed representatives are on that. But otherwise, assuming you guys are okay with those contact people, and I'll fill in who our representatives are, later. The idea here is that we need to adopt this in a public meeting, so.
Make a motion that we adopt this.
Yeah.
Any seconds?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
that's all your business except for the executive session.
I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session and then adjourn the regular meeting once we exit executive.
All right,
Yeah, I
all in
said,
favor? Okay.
Aye.
All set, Jerry?